Hello, everybody. This is Meister Keen, and today I've got a story to tell you. Now, scooch on up close to your computers or your phones or whatever. I'm going to tell you all about this. All right, now, once upon a time, there was a Discord server. And in this Discord server were a bunch of snotty, terrible, awful, warlike, awful, snotty teenagers. And this Discord server, they called themselves a cult. And they looked around at all the other Discord servers around, and they found that those Discord servers were full of ideas. Ideas about being decent to people. Ideas about being kind and doing constructive things. And this cult of Discord miscreants, they looked around at these other Discord servers and they said, no, this cannot be. And they systematically declared war upon all these other Discord servers. And all the good, kind, decent, brave, good Discord servers, they went, they were shocked and horrified at this terrible non-act of non-violence by these terrible, no good, awful, snotty teenagers. And they decided that they would form a new Discord server. A Discord server of good and kindness. A Discord server that would unite all of the good Discord servers under one Discord server. And this Discord server was called the Galactic Security Council. That's my story. So anyway, this Galactic Security Council was formed as a way of dealing with the perceived threat from the Cobra Stan cult. You remember that group? You remember those guys that made a lot of noise a few weeks ago and then they sort of disappeared? Are they even a thing anymore? Are they relevant? I don't know. I don't care. But the Galactic Security Council was formed as a reaction to that. So anyway, here we go. More Discord warrior-ing. That's what I am. I'm a Discord warrior. We don't have a game yet. I keep saying this. I say this in every video. We don't have a game. There's no game to play. What are we doing? What are we doing? What? So I broke one of my own rules and I wrote a bunch of rules for this Discord server. Now, I remember when this thing was originally started. I actually remember back when I was sort of in on the ground floor of this thing called the UDI, the United D of I. I forget what the hell UDI stood for, but basically the UDI, what it was supposed to be a sort of an attempt to form a big sort of government of all these well-meaning groups that would come together and form up and help defend each other from threats. And basically it's a super group, like I was talking about, like the Republic, like the Senate, like all these other things. Super groups of groups that all sort of supposed to bind together and follow all these rules and so forth and vote on things and be all democratic like, because democracies work so well in video games, don't they? Oh boy. I look forward to reading all the success stories of all the democracies that have existed in video games. Please send me all of your success stories of all the democracies that have worked so well in video games. Well, I have a theory. I think I know why democracy doesn't work in games. It's because gamers aren't normal citizens. That isn't who we are. We're not citizens. We're not in a country. This isn't a nation that we're putting together. We're gamers. We game. It's what we do. We're into something if it seems fun, if it's something to do, if it's something where we can accomplish something and win something, right? That's what we do. We go after a thing because we want to win something, right? That's our whole gig, right? We want to prove ourselves. We want to beat the competition, or maybe it's not even that. There's a lot of different aesthetics in games, right? Gameplay aesthetics. There's a lot of different gameplay aesthetics. There's the gameplay aesthetic of, personal accomplishment. There's the gameplay aesthetic of creation and artistic sort of drive. There's the aesthetic of, a challenge, overcoming nasty challenges, of competition, of competing with others, right? Those are gameplay aesthetics. So in a game, what you're doing is you're trying to satisfy those aesthetics. Sorry, I'm going to put my phone on silent. There we go. You're trying to satisfy those aesthetics, right? You're trying to make an experience that will be satisfying for a player to play because it scratches that particular itch that that player wants scratched. Why do you think Minecraft was so damned popular? It was so damned popular because the game was so flexible. It was able to answer a lot of different gameplay aesthetics. You could compete with other players. You could build cool artistic things. You had a survival aesthetic. You had to deal with the challenge of the environment. You had to deal with the challenge of other players. You had to deal with you had exploration, which was interesting, right? A large subset of the things that were so cool about Minecraft are going to be present in Starbase. But here we are. We don't have a game to play. So the only gameplay aesthetic that we can really scratch the itch of, apparently, is forming and governing groups. Apparently, without the actual game to play, the only game that we've got to play is the game of leadership and politics. Because apparently that's all we can do. That's what we default to when we don't have an actual game to play. So anyway, the Galactic Security Council. So the what was it? The IUD or the UDI, which kind of fell into bickering and sort of had to saber itself together after a whole lot of bickering. Apparently, it's gotten decent now. General Wiggin could tell you more about it. Apparently it's okay at this point, but I don't see that they've actually done anything or have had any real effect on anything outside of their little bubble, that Discord server. I left that Discord server. I called it the urinary Discord infection. So yeah, some groups got kind of fed up with the bickering of the urinary Discord infection, and they formed the Galactic Security Council instead. What the Galactic Security Council was supposed to be this really simple thing. It's a military alliance for the purpose of defeating the Kobristan cult, or whatever other major groups pop up that might be threatening to the community as a whole, right? It's just a military alliance, right? If there's a major threat, if we think that we need to defeat it as a group, then we will get together as a group. That's what the GSC is all about. So then it sort of fell into more bickering, and somebody got the idea that the GSC was supposed to be very, very democratic. And then there got to be a big argument about how voting was supposed to work in the GSC. So we had to have a series of votes about how we were going to vote on things. God, my head hurts. Okay, so anyway, I left that conversation. I left it alone because I figured that that was going to basically go the same direction that the urinary Discord infection went. And but later on, it came to pass that the GSC kind of calmed down, and some of the leaders from the GSC started making noise about how they liked the idea of removing the complexity from the whole concept and making it a very simple, just a military alliance again, right? It's just a treaty. It's just this idea that, well, if there's a major threat, we'll all respond to it, right? That's what a Security Council is supposed to be. It's basically just a major sort of threat response, grand strategy kind of planning thing. That's all. That's all it's supposed to be. So then I said, okay, fine. You guys want to restructure this thing? I'll write you something up, right? We'll write something up. And so I wrote this. I said, all right, so the Galactic Security Council has the goal of creating a fair and sportsmanlike environment where its members can enjoy the game free of overwhelming and unfair oppression. Good? Okay, that's the goal. So the purpose of the GSC is to discuss and rule upon threats to the community and coordinate action against those threats. The GSC is not a government. It cannot rule over the in-game behavior of its members. So immediately we set out goal and purpose and limitations. What does the GSC control? What does it not control? All right, you got to lay that out first. The council is made up of the top leaders of each of its major factions, plus a number of leading officers from those factions. The council votes on a resolution to determine what actions it will take against threats to the community. Each faction votes either with or against a resolution, and is only bound by that resolution if it agrees to be so bound. So a resolution would be about something like a project or a war or something, right? The GSC is going to do a thing, because the GSC sees that it is something that is beneficial to the community to do. Right? If it's beneficial to the entire community and the GSC thinks it's going to do some good with this thing, it can vote and say, all right, all y'all factions, are you in or are you out? Right? And then, this is the key part. Factions which vote against a council resolution may have their council membership suspended while the resolution, such as a war or major project, is being resolved. The dissenting faction may then be readmitted to the council or expelled as per the council's vote. This is to prevent conflict of interest and to maintain the integrity of the group. If you're in, you're in. If you're out, you're out. If you don't want to do what the Security Council's doing, you vote yourself out. You go sit in the corner while council goes and does its business, and then once that business is done, we look at whether you're going to be a member or not. Are you going to keep on being part of the group, or are you going to sit this thing out and say that, well, okay, maybe this council thing isn't what I thought it was going to be, and so we'll say it's just not. We'll not go that way. Right? Each faction votes as a faction. However, not all factions are empowered to vote on all things. Factions are granted authority based on their actual contribution to the council and its projects. Such contribution may be in the form of information, promotion, resources, defense, support, or any number of in-game and meta contributions. Factions are rated from level 0 to level 3 based on these contributions. We already had a system of levels. I figured I would just roll with it. Since we had levels in the GSC, I figured, okay, why don't I just use that since they want to have levels, right? So I said a level 0 faction is one which wishes to be a member of the council, but which has not made any significant contribution. This is an unconfirmed membership. Level 1 member is confirmed by vote of the council and may take part in council projects, wars, and events, right? So unless you're actually confirmed as being worthwhile to the council, you're not even considered really fully a member. But once we say, oh yeah, okay, they've helped out, they've contributed, they can be part of the thing, then we confirm you and you're part of the thing. Level 2 members have the right to vote to confirm other council members based on their record of contribution to the council. So let's say you are a very contributive member. We up you from 1 to 2, and we say that we're going to let you make decisions about who else can be part of this thing. And the level 3 member is granted the right to vote to demote or expel other members of the council, may raise other members to level 2 and 3. So level 3 are like the decision-making council members. These are the groups that have proven themselves as being a core member of the council. This is the inner circle of the council. We don't actually have this. None of this actually was this is actually kind of rejected. But anyway, the council is empowered only to make rulings on council membership or upon matters of concern to the broader community. The council is not empowered to rule upon the behaviors or intent of individuals, nor may it force members to partake in wars, projects, or events not of benefit to the broad community. The council exists to serve the needs of the player base, not to empower itself or attain unfair advantages. Boom. So I wrote this up. It took me about half an hour to type this up on my phone. I wrote all this on my phone. And then immediately I put this out there and I say, all right, this is how we're gonna operate. This is how we'll structure the thing. You want to have structure? Here's a structure. All right. At least we're laying out a clear purpose. At least we've got a clear goal in mind. At least we've got some limitations set out. At least we're saying we're not a government. This isn't a government. It's just we're just handling major threats to the community, or maybe taking on a big project if it's going to help everybody. But other than that, we're not even a thing. It's not a government. Well, that got some disagreement. Oh, yes, some bickering happened. We got this guy on the side. So, first thing he says to me is, with respect, Meister Keen, we can do that stuff when we have a working council to decide fairly exactly what the aims of this organization should be. For now, that is priority. So I said, well, I figure you should start with purpose and goal. Otherwise, the hell are you building a council structure for? So this guy wants to start with parliamentary procedure and somehow wend and wind his way through the hills and eventually arrive at an idea of actually getting something done. You get that? He wants the structure, he wants the procedure in place before we know where we're going with this thing. Do you get that? It's like building a car with the idea that with no clear idea in mind of what the car's going to be used for. Should it be a sedan or a pickup truck or a hatchback? What do you expect the user to be doing with it? Well, if you expect the user to be, hauling farm animals around, you probably want it to be a pickup truck, right? If you expect the user to be bringing a herd of kids to school every morning, it probably should be a minivan. All right? The purpose of the device determines the structure and capabilities and scope of the device. You build the thing when you have a purpose in mind. All right, I'm belaboring the point. But anyway, Omnicide's got this thing all ass backwards and wrong ways too. So, a democratic foundation is fundamental to this type of thing. What? Democracy? We get the foundations down first. It has already been decided and mandated through vote. Oh, that's right. That's right. About a month ago, these guys all had a bickering little sort of a powwow, and finally actually voted on this sort of parliamentary procedure for the GSC already. Except that made the GSC less popular, and everybody sort of drifted away from it because now we had solidified this dumb idea that this thing was now supposed to be a fucking democracy. Thanks, Omnicide. Who is this Omnicide guy anyway? Why are we listening to him? Well, I went and found this up. PHR. What is PHR? PHR is the Post-Human Republic. Now, Omnicide is the guy who, way back when, derailed the whole GSC conversation in the first place and insisted that it must be democratic. And, of course, people went along with that because, well, it's democracy. Democracy sounds like a great idea, right? And it's true. Actually, let's read this. Let's look at this. We are a faction which is attempting. Right, so this is in reference to Omnicide's own group. He is the leader of this thing, the PHR. We are a faction which is attempting to create a laissez-faire style liberal democracy. This means that if you become a verified PHR citizen, you will be able to utilize free trade of goods and services within the PHR and outside of it with our allies. Becoming a citizen will also offer military protection by the state, as well as offering the opportunity to utilize a police presence and a judicial legal system to give you protection from injustice being done against you by other PHR members. Ooh, this is a proper government, isn't it? As a democracy, becoming a citizen of the PHR will also give you access to run for political positions as a representative, etc., etc. Parliament, yeah, they want a parliament. Being elected or appointed in either house. Oh, so it's going to be a bicameral sort of thing, like a Senate and a House of Representatives, right? Or, your House of Commons, House of Lords. I don't know how the Brits actually do it, but they've got a similar sort of a split up. They call it a bicameral or bicameral legislature, which means you've got two legislative bodies which both vote upon a thing. Anyway, so they've got two houses of parliament, right? And laws, so it's a legislature, yeah, of course. You'll be able to operate independently as you wish with the protection of the PHR's military and legal system, or enlist in the PHR's military or infrastructure. You should help defend our way of life. So, all right. Okay. So, in other words, you could become a citizen of this thing and then go fuck off and do your own thing. Or you could become a citizen and run for office and participate in the democratic drama of being a democracy. Look, this is actually a great idea if you're talking about an actual real-world, real-life government, right? Just like this other group, the Republic, we're doing. Remember my second video in this series We were talking about the Republic. Man, the Republic have got all this fancy posterage now, right? All about freedom and liberty and democracy. And you remember how much just sort of masturbatory stuff they had in this big long document, with its 83 points about how it was going to be a some sort of a representative democracy, right? And sort of wishy-washy rules about what it really meant to be a member and a citizen of the thing. Not that wishy-washy. I mean, it was defined, but it's sort of like it's the same thing I was talking about. You create a system, and then you expect the system to be a leader, right? You expect people to role play in a serious way as members of this nation, right? So you join this thing and you get all the fun and joy of being a citizen of a democracy. No, guys, come on. If you're role playing it, let's say, here's a way that this would work. Let's say you create a group with a theme, and the theme is like revolutionary America, right? And you style the whole thing after that, and you make fake little political parties and like the Federalists and the whatever else, right? And you take on this style of being a newly formed republic, right? And then you role play it, and you build lore around it, and you get people to write into the lore, and you rope other people into it, and you say, hey, look, we've got this fun role play going on where we're pretending to be a republic, and you can vote to be part of the Senate and everything else, and all this sort of thing, right? That's fun. That could actually be fun. That could totally be fun, with the caveat, right? You got to keep in mind that when you're doing something like that in the context of a game, you are role playing. You're not doing it for serious. You're not trying to govern people's actual gameplay under an actual sort of representative democracy, because that's not workable. It doesn't work for games. A game universe, a sandbox game universe, is nothing like a real life situation. It just isn't anything like that, right? And the goals are different. Remember, I talked about this when you've got a government in real life. What that government is trying to do is it's trying to create a peaceful environment by maintaining actually a monopoly on violence. A government is the only entity which is allowed to exercise violence and coercion, right? A government is allowed, it is empowered by its people. If you're an American, the government is empowered by its people. It is invested with the power to force other citizens to obey laws, right? It is empowered by the people to employ violence in the maintenance of a state, to maintain a calm, orderly environment where life can go on peaceably, right? That's what you are creating with a government. That makes for a nice, easy, boring life, right? Which is why, of course, we go into video games to get our excitement from, because we don't want to live in that in a video game. We want some excitement. We want some adventure. We want something to do. If Omnicide were doing this as a role play, tongue-in-cheek, for the fun of it, had a theme in mind and everything else, and got his people sort of enthusiastically contributing to this role play, right? And if that was how he was doing it, I would be behind it 100%, right? I would be behind it, because what he's doing is he would be gathering people up, and he would be getting them involved in something creative and fun, and pointing the way to something interesting to do, which is actually, funny enough, what that is, the word for that is leadership. If he were doing something like that, you would call that leadership. But unfortunately, what Omnicide actually is, I would judge this individual to be somebody who is allergic to the topic of leadership. I don't believe this person can actually stomach the very idea of what it means to be a leader. It is a harsh thing to say, but I believe in this case it is true. So, he sees a leader doing leadery things, and he says, whoa, 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 wait up, wait up. We got to form a council, and we got to do this democratically. Let's see. So this is what he says. Democracy, right? Votes and all that sort of thing. There's no other way to bring an organization like this to consensus. And unless you have an idea that works better and is not completely autocratic, I assume we'll be continuing to try democracy. Otherwise, I will continue with fulfilling my responsibility to the GSC. Okay, I don't know what he means by that. But I say, okay, well, if that's the way we're going to work it, then I'm officially out. I'm not participating in yet another masturbatory attempt at a game government. If you try to run it democratically, where we're all in if the majority votes us in, and if we have to follow arbitrary rules as set by the majority, then it's going to fall apart to bickering and infighting. Right? You're apparently more concerned with the unity of the GSC than you are with whether or not the GSC actually accomplishes anything. What effect do you wish this union to have upon the game world? What do you feel should happen as a result of this thing? In other words, what action are you going to take, right? What actual result should result from the existence of the GSC? If the GSC is going to be a thing, what do you want it to accomplish? What do you wish have happen? Yeah? There's got to be, in business, you'd call it the product. What's the product, right? You see some guy in overalls on the factory floor, with a cigar sticking out, and he says, I want a product, bring me pictures of Spider-Man, right? He names his product. What's he want? What's the thing he wants? He wants pictures of Spider-Man, damn it, right? Go make it happen. In other words, you demand an effective action take place, which results in a concrete result, right? You don't get anywhere unless you produce a product. Nobody ever gets anywhere unless they produce something, a product, right? A product. Generally something that you can actually exchange with somebody. If you want to make money, right? Here's the end all of business. Make a desirable, valuable thing and exchange it. That's business. That's market. That's how you make money. Make or produce a valuable thing. It could be a lawnmower repairman. What do you produce? You produce working lawnmowers. You got a non-working lawnmower, you can make a working lawnmower out of it. That is your product. All right? You're a newspaper man, you produce pictures of Spider-Man. All right, anyway. So Omnicide says, the fact is we cannot get this many factions, who are as large as they are, to work together and cooperate without having some sort of system to control assets and come to agreements. I cannot even envision how this sort of organization would work without a means to gain consensus. And I say, because you can't envision leadership. You can't envision leadership, essentially. You can't imagine a powerful personality pulling groups into alignment, casting aside the ones who won't cooperate, and bringing a plan into action. And he says, well, that's called dictatorship and tyranny, as well as marginalization. Exactly what this group is against. You mean you can't marginalize anybody? Okay, I get it. Marginalization. That is a nice hot button word for saying that you are making somebody feel bad. And you aren't bending over backwards to be extra super duper fair to somebody. That's what that means. Okay. What's Omnicide actually afraid of here? Omnicide's got a faction of, well, I see 40 members in his server right now. I could join his server. Let's pop in there. And allied leaders, we got a number of online people, foreign ambassador, bunch of non-role people. We've got, there's a citizen. How many citizens does he have? He's got a faction, including nobles? Nobles. Appointed advisor. Okay. So this is a faction of a total of, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Huh, yeah. All right. So he's got 11 people. He's got a faction of 11 people. And these are the people that he is supposed to be, that's his democracy. This is the person who is insisting that we be as democratic as possible and that we don't marginalize anybody. Because what's actually going on is this fellow Omnicide, he's got no power to work with. He's got absolutely nothing. He doesn't have followers. He doesn't have any significant number of people working with him. And here he sees powerful personalities hashing out agreements and deciding to move forward and get things done and leaving behind his system of democracy, and he sees himself losing control. He tried to grab some control by insisting things be democratic, and now he's losing that, and he doesn't like it. Like, he gives dire warnings about what absolute power can do. All right, great. I'm going to be corrupted by all the absolute power that I'm grabbing in this Discord server. We're still just talking about Discord servers, guys. That's actually, let's back up. Let's actually back up a little bit. Let's take a really, really big, hefty step back. Let's take a deep cleansing breath. What are we actually talking about? We're talking about a chat program. We're talking about a bunch of enthusiasts for a video game, but the video game isn't playable yet. So we've got no game world to work in. We've got a number of people. We've got personalities. We've got communication with other human beings. And those human beings all happen to be gamers. We're all gamers. We're in it for a thrill. We're here because there's a journey to be journeyed on. And that journey promises to have some drama and some fun in it, right? There's got to be some blood to bleed and some tears to weep, and that's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be a good time. On the side, he doesn't see himself having that kind of fun unless he's able to ride the coattails of other groups and borrow influence from people who are capable of actually leading people. Again, this is a harsh thing to say about somebody. I don't want this to be the way that Omnicide goes into Starbase. I really wish that Omnicide would actually put on his leader pants and start leading some people and do something effective and have some fun doing that. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Let's move on. After some argumentation, I actually got some DMs from an old buddy of mine named Drunk Russian Bear. Drunk Russian Bear, DRB. This guy is kind of cool. Here's his new faction symbol. This is actually really cool. Argentavian Federation. It's a pretty well organized group. He actually recently did some reorganization of the group. And he says, I'm about to seize control of the GSC. Fuck the rambling man. If I do, we're removing PHR from it and reestablishing the council. You in for it? I say, I'm good. Let's go. Because Drunk Russian Bear is a leader. Here he is, willing to take actual action to accomplish something. And he says, yeah, fuck it. Let's just get rid of this other group that wants to do this weird other thing that has nothing to do with actually getting a war council together. And let's just make the damn war council happen. Right? And so I tell him, all right, I'm with you. Because that's what the leaders do. Right? What do you do to be a leader? Believe in something. Have an ideal. All right? That's step one. Step 2. See something that's wrong in the world, or see something that you want to accomplish that ain't been accomplished yet, and decide on a plan to make it happen. That's step 2. Step 1, believe in something. Step 2, have a plan of action. And step 3, tell some people about it. Get them agreeing with you, and get them working on the same page you're working on. All right? Get some other people moving in the same direction you're moving. That is the 1, 2, 3 of leadership. There's more to it. You could say more about charisma. You could say more about how do you gather people up and how do you talk about something that you want to get done. And there's all kinds of cautions and qualifiers you could attach to that thing, but that really is the simplicity of it. What are you going to accomplish? What are you going to produce? Why? Why are you doing it? What ideal does it serve? Is it a purely aesthetic one? Is it just, I want to be the leader of the most badass PvP group in the universe? Maybe that's it. That's fine. That's an ideal. That's an aesthetic. Maybe you want my aesthetic. What's my aesthetic? I happen to believe that players ought to be honorable. They ought to be sportsmen. I think that this is a sport. And as such, I think that people ought to be sporting. All right? That's an ideal. And I get people unified behind that ideal. And then I make plans of action to bring that ideal into focus, to make that ideal a reality. Right? And then I tell people about it. I tell them about it, and I say, hey, I want you working with me on this. I happen to think that you are somebody who would agree with my ideal. And if you agree with these ideals and you want to make this plan of action happen, here, let's make some action happen. Right? And that's how I do anything. That's the only way I do anything. Look, you can't govern people on the basis of a democracy. If you get a big vote going and everybody votes in one way, then the minority that didn't vote that way is going to feel left out. And what they're probably going to do is they're going to drift off and not cooperate. All you've really got in the way of a governing system for gamers, the only way you can govern gamers is to give them a choice. All you can ever do with gamers is give them a choice. You opt in or you opt out. Are you in or you out? Are you with me or are you not with me? And that's it. That's it. That is the only method of governance that we have. Opt in or opt out. Are you with me or are you not? And that's it. If you try to be democratic about it, you're going to lose. Right? You're going to think you got members and then you don't have members anymore because they're not voting with you, or they'll get wrapped up in the role play of the voting in the republic, and that's what they're actually there for. And when it comes to get something done, they're not going to be there for you because that isn't part of the ideal. Because you didn't at the beginning lay out what your ideals were and what your plans were. You didn't get their agreement to follow along on those plans. All right? If you don't get them to opt in on the product that you want to produce, right? If you don't get them to opt in on the plan to attain the change that you want to see in the world, then then what have you got? You haven't got a group. You haven't led anybody anywhere. It's not leadership. So, if Omnicide wants to role-play governing, that's fine. That sounds like a great and fun thing to do. However, he'd better get with what members he does have, the very few members he has, and he'd better put together some sort of plan of action if he plans to actually enact anything in Starbase. Right? He better have some idea of what he's actually going to accomplish and what changes he wants to see happen in the world. He seems to be trying to do that in a way. He wants everybody to be more democratic because he believes in democracy. Well, I don't believe in democracy. Not in a game world. I fully believe in democratic, liberal republics where it comes to the actual real world. I would not want to live in anything but a democracy where it comes to, a republic like the United States. I would not want to live in any other type of country on this planet. I would not want to live in a dictatorship. I wouldn't want to live in a theocratic sort of a state, like a caliphate or something like that. I would never want to be part of something like that. You know, you don't see me running off to China or Russia. I'm an American. I happen to think that America is a pretty good country, and I happen to think that that's a pretty good way to live life. But I don't think that that is a good way to game games. There's a difference between living life and gaming games. So, best of luck to Omnicide, but Omnicide has been ejected from the from this Security Council, and is now a handful of top leaders from a handful of groups. It's me, Archduke Mito, and Drunk Russian Bear, and Vardo Ternos. Vardo Ternos, by the way, he's actually fairly new to the English language. He began speaking English in May this year, and he's already as fluent as he is. I find that incredible. So, each of these people, Drunk Russian Bear, Archduke, Mito, Vardo, these guys are people who are capable of action. They're capable of action, they're capable of seeing sense, and they're capable of leading large groups. That's why these people are leaders of the major groups in Starbase. I hesitate to count myself among them, but apparently I do have some effect on other people. Apparently I do actually manage to get people to listen. I've gotten about 60 subscribers onto my YouTube channel since starting to making these videos, and these people reference my work when they talk about how they want to run groups. So apparently I am having an effect. People come to me and they tell me that I'm having a good effect on their groups because they're rethinking the way they lead, because they get an idea that the complicated sort of workarounds that they've been doing aren't going to work, and they boil things down to the simplicity of ideals and planned actions and uniting people under those. Right? They boil it down to just the simplicities of how you lead groups, how you be a leader, right? And getting their people to opt in, getting their people to agree that they're going to throw their weight behind this thing, their group. All right, I've just about talked myself out, and we're just about at the 45-minute mark again. So I maybe I ought to shut up. But I wanted to give you guys this, and I wanted to point out the folly of trying to be a real world style government in the context of a video game. Once again, I'm going over this same subject, right? And I want to respond to a couple of the things that Omnicide has said here. I want you to watch out for this, right? So, first off, he accuses us of creating the EU, but in Starbase. Right? We've created the definition of a bureaucracy, a conglomerate group led by dictators and other unelected officials. Right? Because we're not elected. So we're a bureaucracy. All right? And we're shutting the opposition's voice down in public spaces. No, on the side, you can say whatever you want. Make some videos. Make some videos calling me a twat. I invite you, please. Because as much as I might have some power in the Starbase community, I am open to criticism. Any criticism. Criticize the ever-loving shit out of me. It will at least create a conversation, and hell, maybe you'll come up with some things that I didn't think of, and I'll have to think on my feet to deal with some meaningful criticism of something I really didn't think about. Maybe you'll come up with that, but it doesn't look like it, because you're calling us power-hungry twats, and you're claiming to have contributed when you really had nothing to contribute. Right? You ignored my mandate, gained through vote, and instead took a path that can only benefit yourselves. Appealing is worthless if those who run this damn thing are unaccountable warlords. Yes, we're unaccountable warlords, because we're so warlike. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to form an effective group that can counter warlike people. You people straight up removed me from the council because I was the only one actually representing a goddamn mandate, he says. You see the salt? We took away his toys. We took away his potential reach for power, right? He had no power to stand on. He had only the mandate of a sort of a collective democracy sort of thing. And since we took that away from him, oh no, we are the most bad guys that we could possibly be. We had just batted so bad all over the bad place. You fed yourselves into a council full of warlords who will not be held accountable for their actions. Well, we will be held accountable for our actions. If I take action that my group opposes, that they don't like, I'm going to hear about it. You know, there's one person in my group that doesn't like these videos. She thinks that I've actually done more harm than good with these videos that I made. I listened to her. I actually toned down the tone of my videos because I took her criticism seriously. You know, she's a friend from way back when, and I took that criticism seriously because I am accountable to the opinions of my friends and my members. If a harbor man were to come to me and say, "Hey, Keen, look, buddy, I think you fucked up here. I think you're doing something wrong," I would absolutely sit up and listen, because the harbor men they're my people, they're my friends. If some of these other leaders came to me and said, "Hey, Keen, really, we need you to step up to the plate and do something here," or "Hey, Keen, you really fucked up with that video that you posted," or "Hey, Keen, you know, you did something to benefit this group that was all wrong. We need you to fix it." Fine. Yeah, I would listen to that. And I have listened to that when I've made missteps about how I handle the Faction Finder Discord. I listen to those considerations too, right? But no, Omnicide thinks that we're unaccountable. He thinks that I'm unaccountable. Me, one of the most approachable people, probably the most approachable person in the goddamn Starbase community, certainly one of the most approachable leaders anywhere, you know, and I'm unaccountable. All right? No, but guess who's unaccountable? Omnicide came in here, he derailed the discussion, he injected a mandate of democracy where it didn't fucking belong. He tied up the entire group in bickering and infighting when we were trying to get something done. And then, we are the power-grasping warlords. The guy with 11 people in his group who actually grasped at us to attain some power and control for himself. Oh, but we are the power-grasping warlords. No, sir. Omnicide. You are an ineffective leader who is attempting to grab power by riding the coattails of larger groups, and you were trying to force us to listen to you on the basis that democracy equals good for all things. And it isn't. And that idea simply opposes your viewpoint. And I know we pissed you off, and I know I'm saying harsh things about you, but I need you to wake up, and I need you to realize that the way you're trying to do things is not going to be effective. You're going to have to grow your group into something that's actually effective. You're going to have to gain members who are real members, and you're going to have to lead them in action. And I hope you do. I hope you do. Because right now you're leading them toward roleplay instead of toward action. I don't know what you're... I can't see that... If you are a leader of a small group and you are trying to depend upon other larger groups for your own legitimacy, you're going to fail because you won't have built your own group into something that can be legitimate on its own legs. If you really think that your ideals and your group deserve to have their own voice and their own power in a gaming community, then you're going to have to grow that power. You're going to have to nurse it into being. You're going to have to communicate an awful lot. You're going to have to get people to join up. You're going to have to sell your ideals. You're going to have to sell your plan to others to get them to join you up. The way to do it isn't to barge into other people's projects and to insist that you have a seat at the table that you haven't earned. That isn't going to buy you legitimacy. It isn't. And when somebody else takes away your toys, the answer isn't to make dire warnings and quote Voltaire at us. It's not going to work. End of video.